There we go. I like to have these classes, even if I'm not handing out replays, I like to have the file just in case for all different reasons. So welcome, welcome. Let me do this. It's like my least favorite thing to do, because then all of a sudden I'm huge and I can't see most of you anymore. And I way prefer seeing your faces while I'm talking to you, but that's really not a problem. It's fine. So I'm so excited that you are here. Welcome. I have been doing a series of free webinars and there will be more coming up, and I'm doing them on different days of the week and times of day. So the next one will be another evening one. I'm not doing replays. My favorite stuff recently that I've been attending has been no replays, and it's very different being fully present at the time. And then I will do them at different days and times so that everyone has a chance to join. But I love knowing that we are here together having this discussion right now, instead of like, oh yeah, whatever, I'll do it later, because none of us ever do that, right? Never. So if you are new to me or to my community, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm Felicia Lauer. I live in the Kansas City, Missouri area currently, and I have been a THM coach for just over 2 years. And my higher level of training and education and practice is in the life coaching side of it. And I am really passionate about approaching weight loss from the life coaching perspective, what we call causal coaching, because overeating and excess body weight are a symptom. And if we don't solve the cause, we will not have long-term peace surrounding this issue. The overeating and the excess body fat are not the main problem. So food plans and weight loss programs that only tell you what to eat don't work, because they're not even solving the right problem. How many of us have tried diets? Like everything in moderation. That sounds so pretty. How'd that work out for you? Right? Like we've all done it. We've all done the willpower thing. And we'll talk about that today, because sometimes it works for a minute. I mean, I used to do Weight Watchers, and I distinctively remember looking around in my 20s and thinking to myself, if any of you have ever thought this way, I guess there are people who are thin out in the world. I think that nobody wants to talk about it, but that the only way to be thin is to be starving and miserable all the time. But that's okay. I'm down because I really want to be thin. So I'll just give it a shot. And so then 6 months later on Weight Watchers, it's like, I have been hungry for 6 months. And you're about to like eat your husband, right? Anybody ever had that? So willpower doesn't work long-term either, does it? And we all know that. And then the thing about emotional and stress eating is we eat to avoid or numb uncomfortable emotions. But how does that one work out for you? Do you really feel better afterwards? Did it solve the initial cause of stress? Really? Except now we've also got an added layer of misery caused by the excess weight that we're now carrying because we keep overeating to avoid our emotions. And I was in this camp for sure, which is a lot of times people eat to basically tolerate their lives. I don't want you to have a tolerable life. I want you to have an extraordinary life. I'm not interested in tolerable. Tolerable does not get me out of bed in the morning. Like, hey, let me devote my full-time life's work to people being like, okay, I guess I can hold my nose for 40 more years. I'm not here for it, right? We want to live our real lives. And if we're going to live our actual lives, we can't be distracted by using food to try to numb it. However, when we don't know how to feel and process our emotions, stopping overeating when it's one of our main coping mechanisms feels terrible. It's like, oh, great. Now we have an adult who one of the main coping mechanisms is food. We yank the food out without fixing emotional and mind management, and the person is miserable. And that's the other side of willpower and discipline that a lot of us knows is, wait a minute, this feels terrible. something must have gone wrong here because this does not feel good, right? But we don't want to be overweight either. And then one more thing I want to offer to you real quick before I jump into the lesson that I have written out for you is that sometimes I get ladies, and I'm so glad when they ask this question. They say, I don't think I'm really an emotional eater. It's not like I necessarily just get upset and go and eat the food. I just really love food, or I really want the food, Well, here's the thing, you guys. If you just really liked food, you would eat the right amount of delicious food and stop when you are full and not carry any excess weight at all. So when it shows up in our lives as just wanting the food, we are unwilling to sit with the emotions of desire and discomfort when we don't eat every single thing we want. And so that is still a form of emotional eating, because it is an inability or lack of willingness to have the discomfort that we would have to not eat the food. I love asking on classes like these and on my small group, how many of us have had trouble not overeating, right? And I say, okay, which part about not lifting your hand to your face was hard? It's actually less effort to not, it's actually easier to not overeat. There's actually fewer calories involved in not overeat. You just don't lift your hand to your face, right? And then we're all like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, you guys, it's so easy to not eat the food. It is hard to feel the feelings and still not eat the food, especially if you've never been taught to do that. And then one more thing I want to offer to you all, many of you know this about me. I am always willing to be completely open and honest about my own self and my own journey, is that if you are anything like me, I was raised in a physically abusive and violent and chaotic home. So it really wasn't safe for me to feel or process my emotions. I had too many of them. I didn't know what to do with them. No one was teaching me. No one was creating safety for me to do that. My teaching to all of us as adult women is predicated upon the idea that you are now safe to feel your emotions. I realize that may not be true 100% of the time. I am coming from that assumption today. And then if that for some reason is not the case for you, I would encourage you to seek whatever help and assistance you need so that you can be safe to feel your emotions. But when I'm teaching you, I'm coming from the assumption that you are safe to feel your emotions and learn emotional and mind management and processing your feelings and emotions. So let me move this a little bit so that you guys can see me. And those of you who have been hanging out with me recently are also well aware that with the neurological issues I've been having over the last couple of years, my handwriting looks like a 5-year-old with a problem. And that's just, you get what you get, okay? But I think it's legible. And so we're going with it because I love the flip chart. There's something about pen and paper with all the technology that still is such an effective teaching tool. So here I am, for any of you who are visual learners like me, we have the main points written out. So excess weight, here, I'm actually going to do that a little bit. There we go. Excess weight is caused by over hunger and over desire. And over hunger is a physical, your emotion, your hormones, your insulin, leptin, ghrelin, things like that are completely out of whack. And it creates more physical cravings inside of your body and hunger that is out of proportion with what the organism needs for fuel. And then over desire comes from our thoughts and comes from the instincts in our brain, because it gets blown out of proportion, our brain thinking that we need particular types of food, thinking it's way more important than it really is. Or we have over desire that perpetuates itself because we unwittingly form a belief that food makes me feel better. And then we realize at some point later on that that's really not the case. And it's like, oh, now what do I do? Right? So excess weight is caused by over hunger and over desire. Why we gain weight is because our brain, your instinctive part of your brain, your basal ganglia and limbic system, brain stem, all that good stuff. Any of you who hung out with me before know that I call her Noodle, because basal ganglia, limbic system, brainstem, reticular activating system, and so on and so forth is a mouthful if I'm going to do this for my full-time job. So we just call her Noodle. But the instinctive part of your brain is wired to seek reward and is wired to avoid pain. So then modern foods, processed foods like sugar and flour, etc., are hyper rewarding. And then negative emotion is painful when not processed. So I want you girls to hear me loud and clear here real quick. Those of us who have struggled with emotional eating are actually so super intelligent, because we figured out that that sucks and that we get the reward from this other thing. So actually we were totally going with evidence that we thought we had. We were going, oh, gee, I see that negative emotion is awful and that I feel better when I eat because these foods are hyper rewarding. And in terms of the hyper reward, any of you who've spent any time with me or were at my Kick Sugar webinar know that on functional MRIs, sugar and white flour have been proven to be equally as addictive as heroin and crack cocaine. So I want you to understand that. This is not something to be messed around with. I know it's out there everywhere in our world. That doesn't mean that it is real food that is good for you, that was a good idea to be mass produced. And now our foods, fast food, sugary foods in the grocery store, candy bars and all of that are engineered to be hyper rewarding because those people want your money, plain and simple, okay? So your brain thinks that you need this to stay alive. That's why drug addicts struggle so much with staying clean, is because their brain is saying heroin is life to me. If you've ever been addicted to food or sugar, your Noodle was saying sugar is life. So you feel out of control in your own body. You feel like you're practically eating against your will. You feel like you try to stop and you can't. That's why. Your brain is trying to tell you that this is as important as life itself. So the old emotions, I say old and new because they both exist all of the time, but the emotions that we would eat to cover up often include things like stress, overwhelm, boredom, exhaustion, sadness, anxiousness, all those things. When we stop doing it, we feel these quote unquote new emotions. They're not actually new, but then Noodle brings her drama to the surface when we don't give her food to placate her, and we get deprivation, restriction, and desire. And if any of you've ever been on diets that required willpower before, you know that it becomes almost unbearable if you don't deal with it. So then we quit, because no wonder. So the result is that we feel out of control. And when we just stop overeating, we feel terrible. When all we do is take away the food without managing our emotions properly, it sucks. We've all been there, right? So that puts us in a tough spot, doesn't it? You can see why this is a worldwide epidemic, obesity is, and why my specialty is emotional eating, is because teaching women to know how to eat what is the easiest part of my job all day long, every day of the week. Most people don't hire me because they didn't know they could have eaten chicken and broccoli for dinner, you guys, right? Like teaching you what to eat. People think, and again, it's perpetuated by the diet industry, people think what they need is to be taught how to eat. That's not what they need. Sure, will I teach you how to eat every time? I do. I have extensive curriculum about it. But is that really the problem? No. And that's the easiest part to solve. But then we are disconnected from processing our primary emotions. We become further and further away from ourselves, and we feel like the food is controlling us and circumstances are controlling us and our emotions are never in balance. And trying to stop eating just with willpower never works. You've heard me say it before. Willpower is garbage, you guys. It doesn't work, and we all know it. So if you've studied with me before too, you know that I'm certified in one particular tool that has completely changed my life, and we call it the model for short. It's just a way of looking at our thoughts, but I wanted to point this out real quick. We have circumstances. Those are the physical things out in the world. Then we have a thought. Nothing is a problem inside of you until you have a thought about it. And then you have feelings or emotions. Feelings start with a thought in your brain and are felt as a vibration in your body. For the purpose of my teaching, we differentiate that from sensations, which start in the body and travel to the brain, like pain or if you stub your toe or something. Your thoughts and feelings create your actions and results every time. So I do want you to see right here that your thoughts are what create your results in your life. Your thoughts create your results. And that is not woo-woo. That is not manifestation, law of attraction, which is also garbage. It is because your thoughts create your feelings and actions, which create your results. But it is like math, you guys. It works every time. And the only times in my life that I have found a model that I was looking at it and didn't feel like it was working was because I had something wrong. It was because I hadn't pinpointed the thought or feeling that was involved. This always works 100% of the time. So if your thoughts cause your feelings, they also cause your actions and results. So if you're having trouble with your feelings and emotional eating and the actions of overeating and the results of being overweight, the question comes back to your thoughts. It comes back to how do we manage our thoughts? When you have a feeling, you can do one of four main things. The first one is one that most of us know very well, which is buffer or avoid. Buffering is anything we do to avoid a feeling or circumstance that has a net negative result that is ultimately at our own expense, such as overeating. The second one is you can react, which usually produces a negative result. If you yell and scream when you're upset, typically now you've created more results that you don't want in your life. If we resist our feelings, they get bigger. And that is the same reason that willpower doesn't work. It's like pushing a beach ball underwater. The longer you do that, the more exhausted you become. And the further you push it, the higher it pops when you finally let go. I'm going to get this jacket off. It is warm in here. I'll try not to hang myself on the microphone wire, which might take a second and be interesting, but we'll make it work because it is hot in here and there's no way I'm standing here in a jacket for that much longer. There we go. I did it. If I ever do like truly get tangled in the microphone wire, I just want it to be on my gravestone that I went out doing what I love. Okay. So you can resist, which makes them bigger, or you can process and feel your emotions, which typically is like a last ditch resort for most of us, right? It's like, oh, really? It's like I hadn't even, no one took me aside until I was in my 30s. Hey, did you know that if you feel your feelings, you'll be okay? I was like, what? Hold on. I want my money back. I've been ruining my life trying to avoid them. You're telling me I can feel them now? It was really new to me. Many of us have not ever had someone teach us about feeling and processing our emotions and understanding that they come from our thoughts, which means we have control over that. So emotional and mind management are the only lasting solution to emotional eating. And this, you guys, I can promise you with metaphysical certainty because it has happened to me in the most incredible way and is happening to my clients every day. This right here is a skill set that will blow your life wide open. It is the most incredible thing. I cannot evangelize you hard enough on wanting to invite you along for that ride of truly learning emotional and mind management. You will be able to be and do things that you only dreamed of, and you will be able to be in touch with your real feelings and situations and understanding what is really going on for you with awareness rather than always trying to numb it or avoid it or stay away from it or eat to cover it up. Like I said, I don't want you to have a tolerable life. And if for some reason we take away the food and you find a part of your life that you don't think should be there, let's not put the food back. Let's work on changing whatever that is, right? So that you can have an extraordinary life instead of a merely tolerable one. So your prefrontal cortex is up here and it is in charge over noodle. You can learn to process and manage thoughts and emotions. Humans are the only animals that can think about what we think about. We call that metacognition, but you are the only thing in the universe that can think about what you think about. Monkeys at the zoo, if they throw poop at one another, don't go, oh, I better do some models to see if that was childhood trauma coming out. You guys, it's just poop. No other layers, it's just poop. You are the only ones who can think about what you think about. Having feelings, by the way, which is what we're talking about today, is one of the highest privileges of being alive. It is what it means to be alive. It is how humans are differentiated as sentient beings apart from animals, is your ability to think with executive function up here and your ability to feel. So those are gifts. Those are gifts. Those aren't things you want to push away. Those are gifts. So you can learn to boss around noodle with your prefrontal cortex. It's entirely possible every time. I promise that your body never actually does pick up food against your will or do anything else without your permission. You really can think and choose your thoughts and therefore your actions every time. But learning to do that is what has been my work in my own life for the last many years. And now is my life's work in teaching that process to women. It's the most amazing thing. And is there a process to it? Yes. But what better things have you got to do? You can either keep overeating and feeling bad about being overweight, or you can get down to business and learn how to process your emotions and manage your mind and your thoughts. And it's the most incredible gift that anyone has ever given me, apart from the gospel. So when you can feel your feelings and manage your thoughts, now you regain control, not just over food, but your whole life. But you certainly gain the ability then to decide what to eat. So feeling your feelings is the key, you guys. The way to not eat your feelings is to feel your feelings. Feeling your feelings is the thing that permanently sets you free from needing to eat them ever again. So your circumstances in life, do you ever notice, I do this too, by the way, because I'm human and it's pretty normal, but you notice you'll say such and such happened, it's making me feel bad, or X feels bad, just whatever it is, feels bad. Circumstances feel the way you think about them and no other way. Something that happened outside of you does not inherently feel bad or good. Now, I always remind women, that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with negative emotion. It doesn't mean that every time you have a thought that produces negative emotion that you need to get rid of that thought. And sometimes when we look at a particular instance carefully, that thought that doesn't feel very good is still the right thing to do. What I am offering is that you can do that. You can do discomfort. You can do negative emotion. One of the biggest sources of human misery, you guys, is predicated upon the idea that we ought to be happy all the time. Kind of ironic, isn't it, that that's what's making us miserable? Life has a positive and negative aspect to it. It always will. I did not make the rules, by the way. I'm just relaying to you what is. There just is joy and sorrow. There is positive and negative. Them's the breaks, okay? But the fastest way to feel better is to feel the way you do. Have you noticed how overeating actually only perpetuates whatever the stress is? And now we're stressed because the scale is up too. So I always tell people, I don't know if this is the best sales pitch for it or not, because I'm always telling you that you have to be willing to get uncomfortable. But here's how I will try to sell it to you, is that the discomfort of the primary emotion is just one thing. And when we pile overeating, buffering, gaining weight, and then possibly for many of us overeating because we're upset because we're overweight, you know what I'm talking about? Some stress eating because of the scale, right? Nothing like that. We've added many, many more layers of misery. So I am pitching this to you as the way with the fewest net layers of suckiness to it. So yes, you have to be uncomfortable. That's part of being alive, but feeling it through the first time avoids all the other consequences of buffering, which you know you're here because that doesn't feel good. So to start, and obviously these are things that I teach in depth in my coaching programs and in one-on-one coaching with clients, but I want to give you a way that you can start the process on your own. This is enough to get you through if you continue to work at this and develop it every single day. So you need to tune into the feelings in your body. You feel all of your emotions in your body, but many of us who have come to a place of struggling with overeating have become very numb to that. And you will grow your capacity to notice that again by starting to drop into your body and feel how you feel in your body. We all know what it's like, for instance, to feel great joy, getting married or watching a child get married or having a baby or something, or great fear, like getting in a really bad car wreck or watching a child get hurt or something like that, that pit in your stomach, or grief when someone we love dies. However, you feel all of your feelings in your body. So you tune into the feelings in your body, you start paying attention to your thoughts. You guys, this is the magic right here. I want to remind you that your thoughts create every single result you're currently getting in your life. Don't you think it might be a good idea to take a look at that every once in a while, right? So paying attention to your thoughts, and I teach a process of getting them out on paper and looking at them. That's very important. There's a lot of science behind that. So downloading your thoughts every day, especially any thoughts that feel problematic, any thoughts that make you want to eat, and any thoughts that feel like big problems that you don't know what to do about them. Those are the most important ones that you need to look at. But paying attention to your thoughts and tuning into the feelings in your body is how you will learn that you can process them without food, that you don't need whatever you thought you used to get from food to be okay. Do you understand how amazing that is for those of us who have been enslaved to food? You don't need, I only need fuel from food anymore. And I love to eat, by the way, you guys, I still love to eat. Trust me, your girl loves to eat. I love to cook. I love to eat. I love to go out to eat. I love to eat delicious food. But I can say with honesty that I don't look to the food to do anything else for me anymore. I really don't. And it's been the longest time since I've gone to the grocery store and been tempted to just go off the rails, or, drive past a drive-through and be, oh, I'll just get a bunch of stuff and maybe it'll make me feel better. And that used to be my MO. So I do not want you to think that I am different than you, because I am not, or that I am a special unicorn with skills that you lack, because that is also not true. I assure you. It is simply that I learned this process and continued to practice it until my new automatic set of thoughts around food were one that produces healthy behaviors. And now I put no effort whatsoever into maintaining my ideal weight. To me, that's unbelievable. I weighed almost 300 pounds at age 26, and I thought I was going to die fat. So don't think that I'm not where you've been, because I've probably been there and then some, okay? And I really was able to use this process until my automatic sets of thoughts around food and processing my other emotions were ones that produced healthy actions and results. So paying attention to your thoughts is paramount. The other thing, you guys, your thoughts and feelings are the only place that you will ever have to live. Your thoughts and feelings are your experience of your life, period. It is all you're ever going to get. So that is another reason I would offer to you that it is a vitally important work to take a look at your thoughts and feelings rather than defaulting to letting them be at the effect of circumstances and other people. One way that lack of emotional and mind management always shows up is in a victim mentality. It's always somebody else's fault. Things keep happening to me. Okay. And I have been there too. And I still do that from time to time because I'm totally human. Okay. I'm not trying to say I don't, because I do. I blame stuff on people. I'm human. But I have really changed my mindset surrounding that. And when you don't allow your thoughts and feelings to be at the effect of circumstances and other people, everything changes. And that's when you're empowered again. And then asking yourself, what are my needs? Especially if you're just starting out, to stop overeating or to stop emotional eating. You need to stop and figure out what your real needs are so that you're not nearly as tempted to use food to try to cover that up. Figure out what are my needs right now and how can I get them met? Because I guarantee you that your actual need in your body and in your soul is not for Oreos, sister. That's what I can guarantee, is that after a bad day, your need is not for food or sugar, ever. I don't care what husband did or said. I mean, hopefully he's nice to you, but seriously, whatever your mother did, whatever your kids did, whatever happened to you, if you lost your only job that day, the needs of your heart and your soul and your body is never then for unhealthy food, ever. So you need to figure out what your needs are and learn to meet them in a healthy way. And then as you grow in your awareness and emotional capacity, this will grow. I promise. You may feel out of touch with your feelings right now. That's how most clients come to me, frankly, is I don't really even know what I'm feeling. What do I do now? I promise that you can grow that in time by paying attention to them. But as you grow in awareness and emotional capacity, the way to still lose weight when you're on the journey is this right here, which is to make firm decisions ahead of time. And one of my favorite examples to give for decisions ahead of time is marriage. Most of you are married or have been married. And if you're not, you're familiar enough with the institution that this will land, I promise, okay? When you get married, you are saying ahead of time, this is my husband. I don't care who else I meet. It doesn't matter how hot other guys are. Doesn't even matter how hot they are. This is who I'm with. People, have you guys ever been afraid that you're going to kind of snap and cheat on your diet or eat the wrong food or whatever? How often do you leave the house in the morning afraid that you're accidentally going to kiss another man? Just curious. Like, I better really watch it at the grocery. I'm just going to kiss all these guys if I'm not careful. I don't know why. If I turn my back for 2 seconds, I'm just going to start kissing people. Probably not, right? And that really is because of the principle of decision ahead of time. It's not because your quote unquote self-control is any different surrounding your marriage than it is surrounding your food. I want you to hear me on that loud and clear. It's because you made a very clear decision ahead of time. It doesn't matter what I see, it's off the table. Then you don't even look. Noodle loves to negotiate, you guys. So when you use decisions ahead of time, you take those things off the table. Now, at first, she will throw a fit like a toddler asking for candy. You can still tell her no and learn to process those feelings, which is something I teach in depth to my clients. But if you make a decision ahead of time and honor it, this is the way you can still be losing weight and moving away from habits of overeating while you're growing in your awareness and your emotional capacity and your mind management. So I highly, highly recommend, I want you guys all to hear me, especially if you're not a current client of mine, because I tell this to all the clients on day one. This is by the way, you attending this webinar was worth it, right? For these next 2 sentences, okay? This is the most airtight way I know of to lose weight. It works every time. I've never seen anything better, and that's this. You write down 24 hours in advance what you're going to eat the next day, and then you eat that and only that, period, amen, and you keep doing that. That's it. You don't have to negotiate. I don't even have to tell you exactly what to put on there, because you're not going to plan to overeat tomorrow, right? You're not going to plan something that would make you gain weight. We could always do tweaks later, totally. But you will plan with your goals in mind, because that is the nature of your prefrontal cortex. You cannot satisfy an urge or eat emotionally 24 hours in advance. So it's not what you will be doing. So if you simply make a 24-hour plan and honor it, make a doable 24-hour plan and honor it. Notice I said doable, because then people say, what if I get hungry? What if I feel deprived? And I'm like, you're the one making the plan. Don't make it suck. Then you won't get hungry or deprived. So like, have your future selves back for a minute, sister, and make it a good plan, okay? Don't get hungry and deprived. Although deprivation is an emotion that comes from your thoughts, not from what you eat. I do want you to understand that. Restriction and deprivation are emotions that come from your thoughts, not from what you ate. But I would suggest that you greatly increase your chances of not feeling deprived or restricted by making a reasonable, healthy 24-hour plan. Then over time, you can continue to tweak that until you're making the progress that you want to make. Less than 1% of people are medically unable to lose weight. Chances are it may not even be any of you at all. But if it is, it's like 2. And there are methods we have for those too. So in general, if you are listening right now, yes, the 24-hour plan will work for you. And I know Noodle well enough to know that right now she's trying to tell you and me, except not listening because I don't care. But she's trying to tell all of us why that won't work for you. You guys should just throw in a fit. It will work for you. It works for everybody. Okay. So if you really, really want to lose weight, whether you are coaching with me or not currently, or plan to in the future, making a doable 24-hour plan and honoring it, period, amen, no matter what, and continuing to do that, you will gain control over those impulses. You will grow in your emotional capacity. You will learn to eat what you need to eat because you have decided on it ahead of time. And then the other one that you can do, but I always put it in a distant second for that reason, is because the 24-hour plan works so incredibly well. And when ladies come to me, they want to lose weight. And so I'm like, hey, I will do you a solid and tell you the most airtight way to lose weight I've ever seen. Like, I feel like that's nicer of me to do. You know what I'm saying? But the other way to do it is to have firm boundaries, because remembering again that Noodle likes to negotiate. So if it's unclear, oh, well, if I overeat on planned food, or if I get mad at my husband and eat a whole pan of Trimtastic cake like it was on plan, so no big deal, right? And whatever, oh, well, just one, or, well, she didn't say anything about 2 fries, did she? Or it's just a couple tater tots. It's just the crust from the kids' pizza after lunch. Waste not, want not, right? Noodle will immediately get into all this. But if you have clear boundaries and follow them, and then you give yourself a 24-hour notice for exceptions. Now, I want you to understand this. If you do this using my system, the only food that you can't have is whatever you're allergic to. You can have anything, anytime you want. You heard me right. Anything, anytime you want, as long as you write it down 24 hours in advance. Because when you do that, you will do it with your goals in mind, because you're not dumb and you want to lose weight. So you won't write overeating massive amounts of sugar and off-plan foods every other day, because you will know better than to think that will work. So believe it or not, this is self-equalizing. You can have anything, anytime you want, as long as you write it down for yourself 24 hours in advance. So if you use the principle of decisions ahead of time to honor either a 24-hour plan or a set of boundaries, and then 24-hour notice for any time you're making exception to those boundaries, that really is all you have to do. So this is the way you can still lose weight while you're learning to feel your feelings. Now, feeling your feelings feels weird at first, especially when you're used to Oreos. So please, I'm not saying that it feels the same as Oreos, because it doesn't. But, there's downside to overeating the foods that don't serve us, right? It will feel strange at first. You will need to learn to allow those vibrations in your body. However, it's actually easier than resisting them. You can breathe through it when you allow it. That's how you know the difference between resistance and allowing, is when, for instance, when you're resisting anxiety, you're like, no, 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 and you're all tight. But believe it or not, this is the part that freaks people out, that they're so scared to try it. They look at me like I have 3 heads. I'm like, what if you loosen your shoulders and take a deep breath and then exhale and let that vibration in? Allow yourself to be anxious about running late or having a lot of cleaning to do or whatever later today. The fastest way to feel better is to feel the way you do. And then over time, you can keep working on managing your thoughts and emotions. If you don't want to get anxious about the housework every day, you actually don't have to. Okay. But to start, you want to learn to allow. And when you allow it in, you can breathe. And the reason I especially say exhaling is, by the way, when people are having panic attacks and we tell them to breathe, what they are missing physiologically is the exhale. They're breathing in plenty. When people hyperventilate, they're not breathing out. So if you breathe out, though, it will force you to loosen somewhat. But I want you to imagine if you feel the tightening of stress or anxiety entering your body, you all know what I'm talking about, right? That, no, I don't want this. What if you actually physically loosened and let it in? You would find that it's not nearly as bad as you thought it was. And it's not nearly as bad as the results of eating to cover it up for years and years and years. So I would love to work with any of you more about really digging into emotional and mind management. But that is what I wanted to teach you guys today. This is the solution to never having to eat your feelings, is to feel your feelings. And this is the way that we also don't have willpower involved, because we know that doesn't work. This is how we don't just feel tight and resistant all the time. And this is how we will no longer feel like we cannot handle our lives without food to make it better. So I have a little bit of time left here. I made sure not to actually talk for too long this time. You're welcome. Something I'm working on. So please either raise your hand. There's a lot of you here. So please either raise your hand or speak up, either one, if you have questions about this material or would like some live coaching about something, and I'll find you. I don't see anybody yet. That's totally okay. If you guys don't have questions, that's fine.
I just wanted to say thank you, Felicia. I appreciate this.
Oh, absolutely. My pleasure. My pleasure. Who was that? Who said that? I don't know who that was. Mindy, what's up?
I think one of the things every summer like I dread is because like I'm the only one that's trying to eat healthy in the house, so none of my kids, my husband. And so if we, one of their things is let's go get ice cream. And sometimes I'm just staying home, but then I feel bad because I'm not with them.
Mm-hmm.
But I know if I go and I sit there seeing them eating ice cream,
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like I just want that ice cream. It's not fun either way. And like, and camping too is another big thing. And camping, there's a lot of junk food, like s'mores and stuff. And how do you start teaching your brain to sit there and not think those thoughts that it's okay. Like, even if I'm not eating their treats that they're having, even though my brain's like, you want that, you want to eat it. But I know I shouldn't.
Yeah. Well, this is so helpful. Thank you, Mindy, for bringing these up. So there's a few pieces to this. One of them is that it will be important for you to acknowledge that you do want it at first, because when we pretend that we don't, we all know that that's the resisting urges thing, quote unquote, resisting urges does not work ever. I promise. I tried for years. I would know by now if it worked. It don't work. And it doesn't work for any of my clients. So noticing my body wants a s'more, but that does not serve my long-term goals. But I am strong enough to be present with that feeling and let it happen without having a s'more. And I can also work on other thoughts that support me, such as I want most of all to enjoy my family or the campfire, or I brought some Lily's chocolate or a sipper or some Zevia or, something else too. I'm not a huge proponent of quote unquote substitutes, you guys, that, because it can sometimes mask the problem, but there is a difference between substitutes and having your own back by bringing a treat on a camping trip, which I think is a great idea. So acknowledging that you do want it. And if you do that enough times and realize that you're totally okay without it and that it really isn't what you wanted long term, you will stop wanting the s'mores. I promise. Like maybe that you'll never not want one again in your life, but you will start sitting down. Like now when I sit with people who eat all kinds of stuff that used to would have been so hard for me, it doesn't bother me at all anymore. And that was all in at first being present with the desire for cheesecake at the church potluck. And was that uncomfortable? Yes, but weighing 300 pounds was uncomfortable. So I decided to choose which one I wanted to try. And then now when I sit with people eating stuff, I'm like, I wouldn't even feel that good afterwards and just not really that worth it to me. And I'm just enjoying being here. So with your family right now, with ice cream outings and things like that, that's really something you can decide, because you can go ahead and go and just be present with the urge and know that over time that will pass. And you can think ahead of time as well as in the moment, what are some other thoughts I would have right now that would make me feel really good about this decision? Just reminding myself, ice cream isn't who I want to be 10 years from now. Whatever it is the woman I want to be someone who eats ice cream all the time and stays overweight and addicted to sugar because of it? Things like that would support you. And then also knowing that you have the ability to be present with it without needing to reward it with the ice cream. And then over time, Noodle will ask for less and less and less ice cream, because just like a toddler who asks for candy at the grocery. If mom never gives in, those kids throw a lot less fits. We all know this, you guys, as mothers. If we give in some of the time, but not others, kiss of death. They throw a fit every time just to check if today's the day. Noodle is the same. And so when you don't give it to her, she will stop asking as urgently over time. Karen, I will answer that real quick, and then I will get to Faith has her hand up. We'll do her in just a second. Okay, so Karen, I think you're in my current group, aren't you? Where I did a teaching video about feeling feelings, I think like a week ago. And it's definitely not a process that I can teach fully on this class, but the most important ways to start, Karen, are to ask yourself, what am I feeling and why? So that will help you find the thoughts. But even just noticing the vibration in your body and then having a willingness to be open to being present with that until it passes, knowing that you can breathe through it, that you can feel sadness or discomfort or boredom or stress without having to eat to cover it up. And then working also through, how do you want to think in those times, which will change how you feel over time in the future. When that same circumstance crops back up a year from now, you may have started responding differently, but you will want to breathe and allow the feelings in your body. And Joni, writing them down, I would describe what it feels like in your body, like your physical symptoms. It's tight in my stomach. It's heavy in my chest. It's, what color is it? Is it blue? Is it red? Is it jagged or smooth? Does it have a shape? Does it have a texture? Some of this is abstract and probably new for you guys. That training has helped me so much. The somatics of getting to an understanding of what's actually happening in my body. So that now when I get off the phone with my mother, I'm like, oh yeah, that's red hot jagged frustration right here. Right. But then I don't go and eat over it, because I know, like, oh, this is what happens when we talk to mothers. Right. And we just kind of feel it and we move along. And so writing down also, whenever you feel feelings that are uncomfortable, Joni, that you're having trouble sitting with, writing down all your thoughts, just doing a thought dump, just letting your thoughts out would also be a really helpful one. And yes, Erica, camping would be a great time for a planned exception. Absolutely. Okay, Faith, you've been very patient. Let's hear it.
Hi, Felicia. I'm actually in your spring group as well.
Yeah.
But I just started my thought download, and I just did a bunch over the weekend, but I don't know if I'm doing it quite like grabbing the circumstance. Like I went through, I think I listened to that one video 3 times on our on your Facebook group.
Yes.
But so I had a bunch of triggers, I guess, or things that really bother me. And so I can show you, maybe you can see the model I wrote down, and I'm not sure I'm doing that quite right. So, oh, Dominique, can you just give me a second? So for instance, this is like access, like I love popcorn as a trigger. So is that my circumstance?
Loving popcorn is your thought. Loving popcorn is your thought. So the circumstance might even just be popcorn in the pantry. Or on a
Okay.
given evening, if you want popcorn to feel a certain way, then the circumstance might be what happened that day or what happened right now. And then all of a sudden, I just really wanted popcorn. The circumstance might be the events that directly led up to the wanting the popcorn, but it also might just be the existence of popcorn. And sometimes with trigger foods, that's
Okay.
enough of a sea line, is just like, there is cheesecake in the world and Felicia goes nuts. Like, and then now that I know it, it's like,
Mhm.
oh, okay. So we go nuts when there's cheesecake. Now we're aware. And then it takes the power
Mhm.
out of it.
Okay. So the circumstances that I want it, is that,
The want is still your thought.
oh, the want is the thought. Let me
Yeah,
write that
wanting
down.
or desire, any feelings or thoughts or desires on your part will go in a combination of the thoughts and feelings lines. The circumstances, and this is definitely, some of the more advanced work for sure. Learning the difference between a circumstance and a thought is like half of the battle here, but it will
Yeah, I've
serve
been
you so
finding that.
well later on.
Mhm.
So the way that we can think of a circumstance is that it is either an event that happened in the past, behavior of other people, or something that I could take a picture of or prove in a court of law. So for instance, in a court of law, we wouldn't prove you wanting popcorn, but we could say, here is popcorn in the Browns family pantry. And so just the existence of the popcorn might be your circumstance going on.
Okay. I swear I need to hear this like a million times because I'm
That's
still
totally
like,
fine. I'm so glad that I'm loving having you in my group. And this is something that I have been working on for years now. And there's a reason I went into this as my full-time career. And now I'm studying with these people several times a week. It is a big work to learn it. And you're doing a fantastic job just by doing the application, because you are still gaining awareness, even when the technical details could use a little help here or there. Anytime, you guys, I want you all to hear this, anytime you're writing down your thoughts or your feelings or looking at your models, if you've learned them from me, or just letting things out, you're gaining awareness. And the first goal is awareness, because we can't change anything until we know what it is to begin with. So I'm super proud of you, Faith. Someone asked,
okay,
where can I
thank
find the
you.
cost of your different coaching sessions? Oh, sorry, Faith, go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, I just said thank you.
Oh, yeah, my pleasure. Sorry, I thought I was cutting you off. Someone asked, where can you find the cost of my different coaching sessions? I have some exciting new things coming up in June, which is in June, my main group coaching offering, which right now has been 8-week groups on Facebook that typically have between 100 and 200 people in them per round, is going to become a monthly membership service. And so that is something you can join for a month or 6 months or a year or things like that. Sometimes I'll have sales. Sometimes I'll have packages where you can buy a set number of months for a discounted price compared to the monthly fee. And that is going to be the regular price of that, when it's not on sale or anything else, is going to be $89 a month. And then what is currently small group, my more in-depth course, I believe I'm going to call it Mindset Mastery, but don't hold me to that because I'm still working on that with my people. But the more in-depth course, I'm still working out the exact details on it. But here's what I'll tell you for now, is that historically it has been $289 for the 8-week session. I'm going to keep that price comparable. It might go to 12 weeks to 3 months so that I have more time with each group. And then that would be divided into 3 debit payments to make it easier for you on cash flow. So right now it's around $145 per month that you spend in the more in-depth course. That'll be about the same on a rolling basis, but I'm still finalizing the details. And then I do also offer one-on-one coaching. I typically have a waiting list, but I do have one spot about to open up soon. So if anybody ever has questions about that, please feel free to message me on Facebook or email me if you would like to know. Susan, let's hear it.
Hello, Felicia.
Hi.
Just like the other lady, I'm in your spring group.
Yeah, I
And
know. Love
the
it.
same way, like being older, I'm seeing so much that I can relate to and have done, but just didn't recognize it without you pointing it out. But like her, that thought and feeling thing, which is such an important thing to get a hold of, I think working through it and having the same thoughts like she did. I think if I put my mind on figuring out the thought or the feeling first before the circumstance, I seem to be better off.
A
'Cause I might
lot of
not
times that's
know.
true. Yes. I'm so glad you brought that up. A lot of times that's true.
Yeah,
Because a lot of times what we notice first is what we're thinking or feeling. And then we can ask ourselves, what did I have that thought about? And drill down what was going on the outside. I'm so glad you said that. In life coaching, we often start with the thought.
because I was trying to work through that too and could understand how important that is. And I was doing the same thing she was. And then somehow that just kind of clicked and I have been able to pull it apart a little bit. And I would say in that, and I liked jumping on this webinar again because it did drive that point again, which I needed to, because I've had so many really stressful circumstances going on during this membership, the time that I'm doing the spring thing. So it's easier to keep a focus on this and not let your circumstances get in the way.
I'm
You
so
know,
proud of you. That's
yeah,
wonderful.
yeah, stressful time. I mean, we've just had another death in our family, and that's a typical stressful time, and maybe not, but it's still life happens no matter to all of us and to each person. So there's always something, right?
Yeah,
And
and I mean, deaths are never easy, but you're nailing it, Susan. I'm so proud of you for doing this work and for being with us. I want you all to hear this, you guys. There is no right time. There is the time that you make right. Did you know that in March, ladies are waiting for the kids to get out of school, and July, they're waiting for them to go back? Do the math real fast there, Buttercup. That leaves 0% of the year in which it's a convenient time to lose weight. Okay. Like that life is going to be life. And another year is going to pass, and you can either be a year healthier and a year further into your journey, or a year further along where you don't want to be, or at best, a year further stagnated. Life is always happening, Susan. I am sorry that you've had another death. That's so very difficult, but I'm so proud of you for seeing that you can do this work through your circumstances, not wait for them to stop happening, which is not a thing.
And I appreciate that for understanding that because that was so helpful, and you don't want to eat through those things. You want to go where you really have the true help and not just food as the comfort. So thank
Absolutely.
you. I'm really enjoying all of your talks and the tools. And because of that, I haven't gotten into everything, but I know with the group, they're there and I can press through, but I'm enjoying this again today. Thank you.
I'm so glad, Susan. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so
Yeah.
proud of you for doing that work. I'm glad so many people were able to join. I wasn't sure how popular the daytime slots would be. I'll keep alternating daytime and nighttime, but I guess this was proof that yes, you guys will hang out with me at noon. So good to know. Renee has a great question in the chat. She says, how does dissociating tie into this? I would think that when you are buffering, you are disassociating. So by paying attention to when you have an urge and digging deeper is how you return to feeling. Yes, buffering is a form of numbness, a form of we're trying to not have as much contact with what we're really feeling. We're trying to go offline, to be numb. And so when you can be present with your urges, your desires, and whatever you really are feeling, and saying what's going on here, and just have curiosity and open yourself up to what you are thinking, yeah, that will bring you back. I've told my students this many, many times, which is, you guys, if I asked you to majorly overeat in full awareness, you would be so freaked out. It would be the most disgusting thing you've ever done. Like, I don't know about any of y'all, but when I'm in fine form, like a large pizza, not a problem. Okay. If I asked you to sit down right now with a large pizza and have presence and full awareness and taste every bite, you'd get like a third of the way in and you'd go, Felicia, please make it. I don't want this. Is gross. Make it stop. If I told you right now, we are going to make you eat until you have to unbutton your pants, you'd be like, I don't want to do it. And yet then we go do it other times. And it's because it's that numbness that we crave, because we are afraid of feeling the primary emotion. So yes, Renee, absolutely. Learning to be able to feel your primary emotion. One of my favorite quotes from my teacher, Brooke, and this is what I will leave you guys with today since we're at an hour, but you know where to find me in my free group. I will keep sending out emails and texts. I would love to have any of you in coaching. Many of you are already students of mine, and I'm so thankful you're here too. But one of my favorite quotes by my teacher, Brooke, says the fabric of your emotional journey is not about deprivation and overeating. It is about love and fear and being more of the person you already are. Stop distracting yourself with food. Start paying attention to your real life. It is then that you will find your way back to who you really are. And this is my favorite part, because I promise you, it is not just fat. You are not just fat, sister. And I felt like I was just fat for a long time. I promise you, you are so much more than that. There is so much more depth and beauty to your life. And you don't want, believe it or not, to miss the sorrow or the joy. It is the privilege of being alive to get to feel. And we get to learn that skill to do that. And it frees us from needing to overeat. And I don't say this often in these terms, you guys, but then sometimes I think maybe I should. Like, just to be clear, yeah, it's really fun to have been at my ideal weight for over 8 years now. I'm enjoying getting up in the morning, putting on clothes that fit every time, that I feel good in, wearing a bikini on vacation. Yeah, it's worth it. It's awesome. I can't believe it's happening to me after how I felt and looked in my mid-20s. And because of that, I know that it's possible for anyone, because I'm a regular dude who went and bought food when my husband was at work and my son was at school because I could not handle being with myself. So I know that anybody can. If Mrs. Carrot Cake and Jack in the Box and Pizza Hut can get to and maintain her ideal weight for years, I know that you can too. Okay. I know you can. And I would love to work with any of you more. It absolutely is my pleasure and my privilege, Shelly. This was a blessing to me. Thanks so much for joining me live. I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.